so much for coming.
Thank you. All right.
You're the first one in person.
Yeah.
First guest ever in person. Well, since the pandemic.
Cool. And this is kind of a side-by-side podcast.
Yeah, we're just figuring it out here.
Very interesting.
At more games.
I don't know. All right. Cool.
Okay, so we met a few weeks ago at Venice Comedy Compound.
Yeah, we met at a comedy show in a parking lot in Venice where we had comics, spectators, and homeless people watching over us. So it was a very interesting experience.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yep. But it was fun.
Mm.
And it continues to be fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're a comic, obviously.
Well, I'm not. I still having a hard time kind of describing myself as a comic. And since I don't do anything else substantial, I just describe myself as that. But it's kind of like, it's very difficult to always tell my story to people. Because people ask me, what do you do? What have you done? And whatever. And then I have to kind of start the story from the beginning. And then it just takes a kind of totally different turn when I tell the story.
Because you've done so much. I don't even know where to start, because you told me your story and I'm like, wait, what? And then you tell it in your comedy as well. And I'm like, he's done what? He was a heart surgeon.
Yeah.
And comedian, and you've hosted your own shows. Now you have a children's book and you're working on all these other projects. I mean, you've accomplished so much.
I don't know if I've accomplished, I've done stuff. When doing is different than accomplishing. But yes, I was a heart surgeon for 19 years, like studied for 7 years, 12 years as a working surgeon, a heart surgeon in Egypt. And then at the time, I didn't even think about entertainment or television or comedy. And at that time, I was actually on the way to come to Cleveland because I passed all my American exams and I was accepted in a fellowship in Cleveland. And I was getting ready to travel, and then the Arab Spring happened. And then when the Arab Spring happened, I did those YouTube videos satirizing the state-run media for misleading the public. Mm. So I was always mesmerized by Jon Stewart, so I did like a very cheap knockoff version of it on YouTube. And then I didn't think it would go anywhere. I was just getting time waiting for my visa to come to Cleveland. And suddenly it went off and went viral, and then every single TV station in the region wanted to hire me to do a show. And even the people who wanted to hire me, thought it was like, it's just going to be an internet sensation that will not last. And next thing I know, we went into 3.5 seasons with 40 million people watching every episode. It was the biggest show in the Arab world. And that's 40 million people only watching it in Egypt. And it was all over the Arab world. And the show got me in trouble with the government, whether under the Islamists or under the army. Under the Islamists, there was like a warrant for my arrest. I was interrogated, and then I was, released on bail, and I was interrogated for my jokes. And then under the army, the same people who supported me when I was making fun of the Islamists didn't accept me making fun of what the army was doing. And I ended up having my show canceled a few times. And then I left everything. I came to America, starting all over again. And now I'm trying to reinvent my life, reinvent myself, doing comedy in a second language, my second language in English, which is, comedy in itself is difficult, but to do it in your second language, try to do stand-up comedy, it is extremely hard, and it's very intimidating.
I think you're amazing. I can't even imagine everything that you've been through, and then to start over again.
It's an amazing story. Whether I'm amazing or not, that's a different issue, because I need to be also successful, because people remember you of what the last thing that you've done. So I cannot really live on that legacy. Oh, I did that big show in Egypt or whatever, and people say, oh yeah, you were here, all right, good for you. What can you do? We cannot really live on that gig forever.
That's true, but you have accomplished so much, and now you're basically starting over. So you've had so many different lives in your life. I feel like you were a surgeon, and then you had, your shows and your comedy, and now you're here and you're starting over, and you've written this children's book, and you have a documentary, and I feel like you've done...
The documentary was funny because it was made about me. It's called Tickling Giants, and the producer of the Daily Show, one of the producers of the Daily Show, followed me for 4 years, and I always joke about, having a documentary made about you, because usually documentaries are done about dead people or beluga whales. So it's kind of like to be alive and have a documentary about you without being like some sort of a corrupt gangster kingpin or something. It's interesting.
Yeah. So I want to hear just your okay. So the whole point of why I wanted to do a podcast in the first place is just to tell people stories that are inspiring to me, and from what I know about you, you inspire me.
Thank you.
And I think that you can inspire us. You can. I can't talk. Inspire a lot of people out there. So I would just like to hear, like, first of all, how you even became a surgeon. What made you want to quit that and get into this industry, and where do you see yourself like going next? Like, I want to hear like just your whole story for those that don't really know.
So how I become a surgeon? That's easy. I was a nerd. I studied hard at school. I was always top of my class, and there's a path for people like us, going into the top colleges, because it would be a waste to waste your grades on a college that's not top, which is in our culture it's either engineering or medicine. Otherwise it doesn't count. So I went into medicine. So I always went because I just qualified for it. It was more of an exclusion if it had, because my brother did the engineering part, so I don't have to do it again. And I hated engineering, but medicine is something I can understand. I can understand the facts, memorize it, know it, and just,
Were you ever passionate about it, or was it something that you were just good at and it came?
No, I was just something that I was good at. I was never really passionate. I discovered after 19 years of spending my life into that career that I was never actually passionate about that job. And when it's kind of as if I was waiting for an excuse to leave it. So when I did that comedy show, at the first year and a half, I was still a doctor, because I was afraid that this gig will not work, so I can have something to go back to. So, and then after a year and a half, I just resigned. And I just, all right, this is going to be my life. I'm going to be in entertainment. And I did the show, and the show was interesting. It was of course popular, but very controversial, because it was not just a comedy show, it was a political satire show. So people will always judge it according to their political affiliation. It doesn't matter if you're funny or not. It doesn't matter if you hit your punchlines or not. It really matters if they agree with your thesis or not. So a lot of people will kind of like dismiss the comedy just because they would have a different opinion. And by the way, this is not just in Egypt, it's everywhere. And so I did the show, and the show, as I said, it had a lot of obstacles, and there was a lot of pushback, and I had to leave, and it was very difficult to see this thing that you build being taken away from you overnight, and then you have to leave everything. And the scariest part is to try to start your life and reinvent your life again. And I think now, if you ask me what do you find most inspiring about the story, it's not the show. I know that this is what defines me for a lot of people who know me, especially for my part of the world, who know who I am and who like what the show did, and it was a big part. But it is kind of breaking free from it. That was the most difficult, and I think the most interesting thing that I have done, because if you have created something so big, you're more likely than not kind of fall into that cycle of holding on to it and refusing to let it go, and
it's your security,
and define it, and kind of like and just like sulk over it. But I didn't. What I did was I took a conscious decision saying, this is in the past. I'm not going to be able to recreate it again. It doesn't matter if I do it from outside. You cannot do it again from your own country. Although that I was offered a lot of offers from other countries to do it, but it's kind of like to be used as a political weapon, and I didn't want to play this game. And I said, if I cannot do it freely in my own country with my own vocation, my own will, I will not be able to do it. So I had to leave everything, and doing that here was interesting because there was a huge. This is where your fans turn against you.
Yeah.
because they only want to see you in that, because this is how they're familiar with you. So it was interesting, and at the same time very disheartening to see that people who used to like you kind of attack you viciously because you wanted to do something else. And I didn't want to do something else because I quit.
You were
Because
kind of forced?
I can't do it. Really. You cannot do it from outside the country, and and the thing is like, oh, why don't you do it on YouTube? It's like, so why? It doesn't make any sense. You do it from your own country. You bear the consequences for your actions and your words from inside your country. You don't do it outside, and then see people get all riled up, and then they pay the price while you're living comfortably outside.
Right.
So I when I did stand-up comedy in English, even some of my Arabic fans would come to the show and would make me feel bad about it. It's like, oh, wish we do it in Arabic, wish that you say this stuff. It's kind of like they are really they lock themselves into that era, because that era was, that period of time was linked to the whole thing about the hope and freedom and the hope of a different life and whatever, and it was taken away. So the show, when it came, it's kind of associated with that. So they you know how we know, like, on How Love Kills You, this is too much love killing you, you know. And it made me feel sad, because I saw Americans or Arabs living in America responding more to me doing my new thing more than people who are used to me doing my show back home. And then when I did the children's book, it's like, oh, it's children's book, it's like that. And then when turned into veganism, and I was always a vegan for 8 years, and that's a different thing. Sorry, I'm going into different things.
No, I wanted to stop you and say, so first I wanted to ask, and then we'll get back to I want to ask about the children's book. Was it difficult to get into the entertainment industry when you decided that you didn't want to be a doctor anymore?
Well, for me, it's different, because I did the entertainment. My entry to the entertainment industry was this, like, in spite of the entertainment guardians, right?
Okay.
Because I did it on YouTube, and it exploded. So people wanted me. So now people's like, oh, we get you. So it's kind of like I've already established myself on the internet before I even went into the door.
Right. Okay.
So that will give you leverage when you negotiate.
Then I wanted to ask you, I just didn't want to interrupt because I was like fascinated with your story, but when everything started to go down with your country, were you ever really scared for your life or your family's life, or like, how did that feel to have your country then kind of like turn against you, and your show got canceled? And
I didn't feel that much fear, because I think I have consciously kind of blocked it from my mind. I would think I was more concerned about if I did a bad episode, or if I did. Oh yeah, I was actually worried that, like, my jokes didn't land more than I would actually be killed. I was more afraid of Twitter than a shot into my head, because if a shot comes into your head, that's it, it's done.
It's done.
But then when somebody's like, you're not that funny, that's actually hurts even more. So I was even, but yeah, I was concerned about the people's reaction more than my own safety, which is crazy.
That's crazy. Okay, so now we're back at the children's book. What
because you see, if you put into prison, or you get hurt, and you live it, you have a story to tell.
That's true.
But if somebody calls you, you're not funny, there's no.
Then your
you're
whole
done.
dream is crushed.
Yeah, I'm done.
Well, I think you're funny.
You just keep.
I do think you're funny.
You're being too nice, thank you.
So, how did you? I know you have kids.
Mm-hmm. Two kids.
How did you? I mean, obviously, I think your daughter probably inspired your book.
Yeah.
So, what made you want to write a children's book?
So it was interesting, because I was talking to my managers about writing a children's book, and at that time I wasn't even sold on the idea of writing a children's book. So they told me, think about it, and when I thought about it, I said, maybe my experience can inspire that children's book, because I thought that, like, many of our problems in adult life, when we cannot live together or understand each other, or play along. I think these problems maybe were not addressed as young children, and the middle school is where children become aware of the political climate. What does it mean to be different? What does it mean to be discriminated against? What does it mean to be an outsider? So I thought maybe I would write a book inspired by my experience, but I will add magic and storytelling and humor to a children's book, so it doesn't become like really on the nose. So the book follows my daughter, and a daughter of a girl from an immigrant family who comes in and she finds this magical amulet, and this magical amulet has like an ancient teacher, Egyptian teacher that was locked in for thousands of years. So it's kind of like the Aladdin genie,
Yeah.
and he comes in from a different, and he tries to help her through her struggles in the middle school, through taking her into magical trips through history, because at the end of the day, history really repeats itself, and what we go through now, we have went through before.
Yeah.
So by understanding where she comes from, she can deal with what she's going through in her new life. So that was the thing, and we're about to go and pitch it for as an animation project. So
It's amazing.
we have a production house that's very interested in it. So we're very excited.
I'm excited. I think kids need a show like that for sure. Have your kids adjusted, because they were born?
Oh yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
they're adjusted.
Yeah,
they're
like it
all,
here.
yeah. And I think it's like there's nothing really to adjust other than waiting on customer service for hours. But otherwise, it's an easy country to adjust to. I mean, in my own experience, of course, everyone's experience is different.
Yeah. Yeah. So then I want to go back to, you said you were vegan. I'm pretty much, I don't want to call myself a vegan because
Not one of the
I'm
annoying
not
ones.
100%, but I eat mostly vegan. So what got you into eating vegan?
No, so 8 years ago, I met a friend of mine who had MS, multiple sclerosis, and he kind of he was able to reverse or control his disease by his diet, and I was mesmerized as a doctor. I was one of those people who made fun of vegans. So I decided to try it, and I tried it, and I felt great. And then when I felt great, I started to talk about it, and then I started to convert people around me, or even kind of like modify their food, and then people became healthier around me. So I felt like I'm gonna take this and make it a project. So I created a whole website called Plant B, and I created like videos, and I create like, and now I'm building an app, and I'm doing projects in the Middle East in order to promote this. And I was able to create the first ever vegan show in the Arab world last year, and it was actually broadcast as one of the regional shows. And this is one of the things also, I mean, this is like my own personal life, and I kind of like made it into use and to help people. But again, this comes again, the reaction of the people who only want to see you as that guy who's doing political satire in Arabic. And the kind of rejection and ridicule that I got because of that was interesting. And it's very interesting to see how people use that to attack you. So they always, go back to the kitchen. It's kind of like this is what you tell women, right? Because food and cooking is related to what women do. So it's kind of a more of a chauvinistic kind of way to belittle people. And at the beginning, it was kind of annoying me. But it's kind of, as much as it annoyed me, it kind of gave me some sort of a motivation to prove that the thing that was ridiculed the most, I will make it the most successful. And this is what I'm doing right now. I'm kind of like, I can. 8 years ago when I started, it was like people thought like I was going into some sort of a media suicide. But now, in 8 years, I have created a community. I have created a trend that was not there 8 years ago. And using my platform to talk about it, as much as there's so many negative and negative comments or people who kind of disagree, but on the other side, the amount of messages that come to me every day and telling me how this has improved their lives, how it helped with their parents' diseases, how it made them get off medication. That kind of a thing that makes me going. Because before that, nobody really talked about it.
Right.
With that, I mean, they were, but they didn't have that kind of reach. And I'm using that power for good in order to create a platform for people to even be better and even make it a successful business and a successful media project. So yeah, I mean, hopefully those haters is gonna hate, and hopefully soon I will prove them wrong again.
You will. I love that you just keep reinventing yourself. And there are people that have so many ideas that never follow through, and I feel like you've always followed through with your ideas, and that's all it takes is just action. And I feel like when you have an idea that you know you have to do, like you do it, and it works for you. I truly feel like no matter what you want to do, you're just that person that is going to do it. And I'm excited about these new projects.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and going back to comedy, it was. I think that is actually another thing that was something that made me. It still is a big part of my insecurity about doing comedy in a second language, because I started stand-up comedy in 2 years ago, and it is not really about translating. It's not really about having a good command of the language. You can be as fluent as you can. You can be outspoken, you can be very eloquent, but when it comes to comedy, stand-up comedy in specific, it's something else. It's like the delivery, the pacing, the timing, the pausing, everything. It's kind of like a whole mindset. I had to rewire my brain in order to think and react and perform, not just in a language that is foreign to me, but also in a way that is foreign to me. Because people from different cultures and languages reach their punchlines differently. Okay. They make humor differently. They make jokes and tell jokes differently. So I had to be in that mind space, and this is an ongoing process of. This is a work in progress. Every day I go to stage, and it's very interesting to see that unfold.
Yeah, I'm just thinking because I was in the comedy world for a long time doing photography, not obviously a stand-up comedy. But just observing all the comics, it's hard enough being, in your own country with your first language and learning it. There's so much to it. The writing has to be good. The timing has to be good. The punchline has to be good. You have to really, you have like hecklers that you have to deal with, and certain things happen, and you just have to kind of go with the flow, and you have to be thinking so far ahead. I can see, and the cool thing about I would have never known that you were, I don't want to say struggling because you were struggling, but you're saying it was difficult to learn and relearn it.
It is, yeah.
But to me, just seeing so much comedy, and I remember the first night that I saw you do stand up, it wasn't the best lineup that I've seen, and you stood out to me as one of the best that night. And I was like, okay, finally a good one like that, and then I kept seeing you for a few weeks, and I still laughed at the same joke that I have now heard 3 or 4 times. I still laugh like it's the first time I hear it, and I know like good comedy and bad comedy when I hear it, because I've had to hear it for so many years. And so I just want to, assure you or let you know that I think that you have done an amazing job, and it couldn't be easy.
Well, thank you so much. It will help much more if you are a Netflix executive, but thank you so much. I mean, yeah, I'm very happy to get that kind of acknowledgement, but yeah, if you can make yourself into some sort of an HBO executive, that would be great. Okay. And that will help a lot. But yeah, I will take this compliment and on this side by side table setting in this very weird atmosphere. All right.
Well, thank you so much. Tell everybody where they can find you.
Oh, there's Facebook, Bassem Youssef, but the Instagram @Bassem, just my name. I kind of use Instagram more. Facebook is much. It's just too much.
I don't do Facebook. It's too much.
I still do. I have to do Facebook, but
I should do.
The people on Facebook are much more vicious. Maybe Instagram, because you're dealing more with pictures, kind of like there's still like jerks everywhere, but it's less jerks on Instagram.
Yeah.
In my own experience.
Yeah, you have a big following on Instagram.
Yeah.
Just 3.5 million people.
Probably half of them hate me, but that's fine.
They still follow you, so they
that's called hate following.
Well,
that's like hate watching.
You're doing something right when you've got the haters.
Yes. Or you're totally wrong.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and I can't wait to see these new projects. I know, the book, I think being a kids show is so important right now, and where we're at and where kids are at, and I think that that's going to be amazing. And then the whole vegan thing, I am so excited about that because I have been really passionate, obviously, about fitness and nutrition for a long time, and I do know that living a vegan lifestyle can help with your health so much,
and the planet.
And the planet.
Save the
Which is
planet.
so important.
Save the whales. Save the dolphins. Save the fish.
It just works out better for everybody if everyone's just vegan.
Yes.
So I can't wait to see what you do with that project. So, and thank you so much for coming down to Santa Monica and being in this weird environment. We're doing what we can.
Thank you so much for having me. And now back to the Zoom podcast.